The mansion was quiet, bathed in the early morning light. CEO Brandon Wolf stood at the kitchen island, staring blankly into his coffee mug, the weight of his company's latest crisis pressing hard on his shoulders. Quantum Solutions, his billion-dollar tech firm, was facing a catastrophic algorithmic failure that had already cost them over $200 million in failed contracts and client trust. For weeks, his brightest engineers and AI experts had labored day and night, yet the root cause remained elusive. He barely noticed the faint humming as Elena, the maid, moved quietly through the room, dusting shelves and tidying the counters. She had worked for the Wolf family for just over 3 years, quiet, respectful, efficient. She never asked questions, never spoke unless spoken to, and always had a calm, almost serene presence about her. Brandon sighed deeply, rubbing his temples. On the counter lay a stack of printed data sheets filled with streams of complex code, simulations, and error logs. His CTO had dropped them off the night before, hoping something might spark a solution. But all Brandon saw were numbers and failure. As he turned to leave the kitchen, he noticed Elena standing near the counter, her gaze fixed on the pages. She didn't move or pretend to clean. She was simply staring at the data, her brow furrowed, fingers unconsciously tracing patterns in the air. "Is something wrong?" Brandon asked, a bit sharper than intended. She startled slightly and took a step back. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to look. It's just," she hesitated. "I noticed a redundancy pattern in the second sheet." Brandon blinked. "A what?" Elena pointed gently to a segment of the printout. "Here, the algorithm keeps looping through a redundant set of variables when it hits a conditional limit. It's recursive but unnecessary. That's why the outputs fail past a certain threshold." Brandon stared at her. His eyes drifted to where she pointed. The pattern was there, obvious now, once seen. But none of his top-tier data scientists had spotted it. "You understand this?" he asked cautiously. Elena nodded slowly. "I studied computational theory and symbolic AI at university. Back in Columbia, I had to drop out when my father died. My mother needed help, and I came here to earn money." The room went still. Brandon walked over, holding out the sheet. "Show me." Within minutes, Elena had not only explained the bug but also proposed a fix. Not just a patch, but an elegant solution, a streamlined restructuring of the recursive function that would prevent the entire algorithm from collapsing. It was brilliant, clean, ingenious. Brandon didn't say a word. He simply watched her work. An hour later, he called an emergency meeting. His entire executive tech team gathered in the boardroom, groggy and confused. When Brandon walked in with Elena by his side, eyebrows raised. Whispers stirred. He handed the team the revised code and asked them to test it. No explanation, no names, just run it. Within 20 minutes, the simulation ran flawlessly. No errors, no collapses. Performance surged 37%. One engineer looked up in disbelief. Another simply muttered, "Impossible." "It's not impossible," Brandon said. "It's Elena." Confusion turned to stunned silence. "Elena," he continued, "is not part of our engineering department. She's not even on our payroll system beyond housekeeping. But she just solved a problem that none of you could in 3 weeks." He turned to face them, voice steady but sharp. "And that should humble every one of us." The shock rippled through the company like a tsunami. A quiet maid, a woman most of them had passed in the hallways without acknowledgement, had cracked a multi-million-dollar mystery while dusting countertops. Elena stood at the edge of the room, visibly uncomfortable. She had no intention of humiliating anyone or stealing the spotlight. She had simply seen a problem she understood and spoke up. But now, she was at the center of a firestorm. Brandon approached her. "Would you consider joining us officially? Not as housekeeping, as a junior engineer. We'll pay for your continued education. You clearly belong in this world." Tears welled in Elena's eyes, but she shook her head. "I'm not sure people here would welcome me." Brandon turned to the room. "She's more welcome than most of us deserve to be." From that moment, Elena's story spread like wildfire. Employees who had never noticed her began to say hello. Engineers asked for her thoughts. Executives checked their egos. Elena joined the engineering team 2 weeks later, not out of ambition, but because she wanted to help solve real problems. And she did, again and again. Her work not only recovered the $200 million lost but led to new breakthroughs that positioned Quantum Solutions as a global leader in ethical AI development. But her presence changed more than just the bottom line. A cultural shift swept through the company. A humility they had lacked for years returned. People listened more, judged less. Departments began anonymously submitting ideas from interns and janitors alike. They called it the Elena Initiative. 1 year later, during a TED-style company summit, Brandon took the stage. I used to think genius only came in titles and degrees, he said. Then I met a genius who came in a uniform. He paused and gestured to the front row, where Elena sat, now head of the company's Applied Ethics and Solutions Lab. The applause was thunderous, but she didn't stand to accept it. She simply nodded, eyes lowered, as if still trying to believe it was real. After the summit, a young intern approached her. "How did you do it?" she asked. Elena smiled gently. "I didn't try to impress anyone. I just solved the problem I could see." Behind her, a quote was now engraved in the building's glass wall. "Never ignore the quiet ones. They may be listening to the answers we've stopped asking." Outside the company, news outlets picked up her story. Blogs, tech journals, and human interest shows all ran segments. She became a symbol, not of overnight success, but of unseen brilliance. The kind buried beneath assumptions. The kind we overlook every day. Yet she never chased fame. She refused interviews and declined invitations to TV talk shows. When asked why, she simply replied, "There are more problems to solve." One rainy evening, Brandon found her in the lab, working late. "You know," he said, "I still think about that morning in the kitchen." She looked up, smiling softly. "I do too. What if I hadn't asked you what you were looking at?" She paused. "Then I would have quietly solved it anyway. Maybe I'd have emailed it anonymously." The answer mattered more than who found it. He chuckled. "That's why you're leading the ethics lab." The rain tapped against the glass, soft and steady. A silence filled the room, no too awkward, but profound. The kind that follows understanding. Brandon left her to her work, walking out into the night with a quiet thought echoing in his mind. Greatness doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it hums in the background, dusting a counter, waiting for the right moment to speak. And when it does, the world shifts, if only we're wise enough to listen.